funding 5%. And budget that came out, the governor takes a look at the budget, and then the fiscal bureau or joint finance takes a look at the budget and decides, what we're going to keep in, what we're going to cut out of the budget. In the governor's proposed budget, he did have cut out the $250 per pupil aid to the school districts. And Rick and I attend the CISA 6 meetings quite frequently, and there were a lot of administrators that go to that meeting, and they were all up in arms about the fact that this extra funding would be taken away. When in fact, after the budget was all said and done, the legislature put that funding back in. We increased funding this year, $211 million to K-12. Over a $72 billion budget, we spend an awful lot of money on education. I believe the number comes out to about 48% if you include what we spend on the university system, the tech colleges, and K-12. Almost 48% of our budget is spent on education. So I didn't come here tonight to put on a presentation to tell you to vote no on this budget or on this referendum. I just want to present the facts from my perspective as a joint finance member. I want everybody to make up their own mind. I just feel that it's important to get information, good information out to people so that they can make up their own minds. So I'm going to go over I put together, this is the first PowerPoint presentation I ever put together this afternoon. My daughter was homesick today, so she was able to help me a little bit, so I apologize. But what I wanted to do, and I do have a copy of this, I have 25 copies, just in case people wanted to verify that I didn't make this stuff up. This information comes from Dave Lopnow, who is the Fiscal Bureau analyst for K-12. And the Fiscal Bureau is the legislature's arm. It's full of a bunch of accountants and really smart people that are good with numbers. And they're nonpartisan. They're not Democrats. They're not Republicans. We ask them for information, and they give it to us. And this was some of the information that I asked for from Fiscal Bureau just on Friday, actually, when I found out that I was going to be doing this presentation. We can probably one thing that I want to point out. Now, I received this in the mail today from the Oshkosh School District, and it was a mailing, and it has some information on there. So I think that's important when this kind of information is being sent out. I want to address some of the things on here. If a lot of you probably have received this or have seen it on Oshkosh Area School District's website, where they say that their per pupil or per student funding is around $11,300. That's what they show on this chart. And then they compare that to the athletic conference. They compare that to neighboring districts, and they compare it to similar sized districts, and then the state average. So if you go down to the next screen, Joe, I think that does it here. So you can see this is directly from the Fiscal Bureau. And I point this out, it's a small difference, but it makes a difference when you're talking about these numbers, where they say that their funding is at $11,300, when in fact their total funding is $11,500 per pupil. And it shows where that money comes from. It shows this number here is from property taxes per student in the Oshkosh School District. This is federal aid, this is state aid that we as the legislature give K-12, and then local non-property tax. So it comes up $11,500. That number does not include, there are, just to make it simple, I'm going to say that there's 10,000 students in the Oshkosh Area School District. And we'll get to those numbers in a minute also. But just for easy calculating purposes, we'll say that there's 10,000 students. With that...
The most important about this slide, if you notice as well, I know the argument's been made that the legislature does nothing for the school districts, but if you look at the numbers here, Oshkosh actually received $6,019 in state aid per student, and the state average was 5,756, so we're actually getting a better bang for the buck here. Now, there's a number of quantifiers that go into that, but don't believe any rhetoric that the state isn't helping fund the school district.
Well, one thing that wasn't included, and I do want to recognize Stan Mack, the administrator for Oshkosh Area Public Schools. We were at a meeting this morning, and I'm happy to have Stan here. If he wants to get up and dispute any of my numbers, I would love the opportunity, to go to some of his meetings where he's meeting with the different members of the city of Oshkosh. But I'm glad that Stan is here, and a lot of you, any of you can ask questions this evening. What is not included in this number, if you all remember, 2 years ago we passed the referendum for a $4 million 7-year referendum. It was $28 million referendum. Those numbers are not included in there. So if you just take simple math and take the $4 million divided by 10,000 students, it comes out to about $400 per student in addition, for spending. That isn't included in this number. So if you take the 11,500, and these are numbers from the Fiscal Bureau, and you add on $400 from the last referendum, because that's money that they're able to use, for their spending, that comes to $11,900, almost $12,000. If this referendum goes through, it's very similar. It's $4 million a year again. That's going to add an additional $400 per student. And later in the presentation, we'll break the numbers down as to, the per pupil, what we add per pupil wise, just to, kind of shore this all up, and it'll hopefully make sense to you. The point I'm trying to get at is this graph here makes it look like Oshkosh School District gets so much less than all the neighboring districts and similar sized districts and state average. When in fact, if you add on the referendum, the 400, if this one passes, we're actually going to be right up there. We're going to be within $200 of the state average. So, it's just, I think, a little misleading when the number on here, if you pay attention, it looks like we're not funding Oshkosh schools. And when in fact, we are heavily funding Oshkosh schools. You want to go to the next? I realized after I sat here doing this that with a room full of people, if my head was spinning, a lot of your heads are probably going to be spinning also, and I apologize for putting some of this up here. And a lot of this information, as I said, you can take home and read about it. I think the important numbers to get at, and what I'll do after we kind of give a presentation, I want to open it up for questions and answers, and hopefully, if you have different things that you're wondering about or statements you want to make, you can do that. We are in a declining enrollment environment. And if you look at Table 3, can you go to Table 3? I think it's the next one. Next one. One more. Actually, go back to that. Go back to that one. It kind of explains it. So Table 3 shows membership data for the Oshkosh Area School District and for the state as a whole from 2005-06 through 15-16. 10 years. Membership is the number of pupils who can be counted for equalization aid purposes. And the numbers presented are those used in each aid year. Table 3 shows that the district membership has declined by 5.1%. Wide membership has declined by 1.7%. So we are in a declining enrollment environment in Oshkosh. So the next screen will kind of make this a little clearer. So if you go back to 2005-06, there were 10,334 students in the Oshkosh Area School District. And you can see here what that changed. In 07-08 fiscal year, we lost 65 students. The next year, we lost 6. We lost 50 the next year. For 2010 and 11, that was, the economy was very bad. We lost 158 students.
Mike, could you give us those numbers, please? You got minus this and minus that, but can you give us the numbers?
Yeah, he'll hand you one of these. So going through, I mean, you can see every year we're losing students. And if you add that up, we've lost a total of 529 students in the last 10 years in this school district. So, and that's based on demographics. You know, the baby boomers are not having kids. You know, there are not as many kids going into the public school system. And state aid is based on the number of pupils you have. And so when the comments are made that, you know, state aid is declining, well, state aid may be declining a little bit, which, you know, I'm going to refute that. But your numbers in the district are also declining. Now, one thing also in here that's not included, and I don't know because I couldn't get this information from the school district, maybe Stan could answer this, but these numbers are also a little skewed because they started including K4 K4 kindergarten into these numbers, and I think it was as recently as maybe 4 or 5 years. So I have no idea what the K4 population is in the school district, but those have been included in those numbers, so we've actually declined even more if you take that K4 equation factor out.
If you look at the bottom number, the 529 that you're missing the students over the last 10 years, one of the things you might ask yourself is if I own a business, my business is such that I have to get rid of 529 employees, am I going to try and run my business the same as when I had the 529 employees? The answer, of course, would be no. But instead of making the tough decisions and doing things like getting rid of a $700,000 line item for vehicles in your budget, what you should be doing here is trying to figure out how you can minimize your costs and adjust your costs to the population of your students, not toward the taxpayers and say, help us fill the gaps so we can continue running today the way we have been because that's easier to do. So that's just my take on that number.
Bravo.
This is this is something else now that they put out, and it shows this graph here, and it says inadequate state funding. And it talks about the 2014 referendum, and it says school districts are governed by revenue limits imposed by the state legislature. When these limits do not keep pace with inflation, a funding gap occurs. See diagram below. Now, I went back over the last 3 years, and I looked at 3 different numbers. I went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and a couple other different governmental agencies to get these numbers. The Consumer Price Index in 2015 increased by 0.1%. That's basically inflation. In 2014, it increased by 1.6%. And in 2013, it increased by 1.5%. So adding those 3 years up, inflation, basically in simple terms, increased 3.2%. And if you look at, I think it's table 5, if we jump ahead here. If you look at the last 3 numbers right here, this is general school aid from the state of Wisconsin. Aid was increased $51,000 and went up $355,000, $600,000, and $1 million. So it went up 0.7, 1.2, and 2.1. You add those numbers up, and what does that add to? 3.9? 4.9. So it's almost identical with what inflation has gone up and what we've increased in funding to the schools. This is general state aid. If you go to table 6, Joe. A lot of you probably got your property tax bill and have been paying them, in January here. If you noticed, one thing that always really bothered me is we would work in the legislature, and I was a freshman last year, and this is my second term. I would come back to the district, and people would say, well, I thought you guys were lowering my property taxes. Well, we did, but the school district levy continued to go up. Now, this year, I have to, give the Stan credit and the Oshkosh School District credit, because if you noticed, on your tax bill, actually, if I'm not mistaken, it was 0.9. It actually went down. So your taxes actually did go down across the board because the school district did not go up this tax period in 15 and 16. But if you look right above that 0.09 number, this was our tax bill. This is how much the school tax levy went up, 7.6%. Year before that, 3.7, 3%. In 11-12, it went down 1.2. But all of these years, it went up. It's increased a total of 49.5% just in the last 10 years. The state average has gone up 35%, which is, to me, is still pretty significant. That's what all of us are paying. Business owners are paying. You as taxpayers are paying.
So your taxes have gone up 49% here in the Oshkosh School District, and you got zinged with the referendum 2 years ago, and you want to potentially get zinged with another one. So one has to ask, where's the money going?
How many buildings did they build?
Just one.
That was a
And
different
there was a
referendum.
remodel, I think, to
That was a
Lakeside.
different referendum than the last one. So
Yeah,
That was
Lakeside.
2010.
The school districts are allowed to levy what we call levy to the max. Not all school districts levy 100% of what they're actually allowed by law. I think for the past 3 budgets, which would be 6 years, I believe that Oshkosh has levied to the max. So they have taken full advantage, and in fairness, the legislature says this is the maximum amount that you can levy. Not all school districts do it. Oshkosh has levied to the max over the last couple sessions. I'd like to jump ahead to table 9, I think is going to be the best. So if we look at this now, on these numbers, this is what I was talking about that I got from Fiscal Bureau, the amount per student or per student, the base revenue, and then you add in and now we actually have to go back to 08. There was a referendum passed in 08, and so this is added per student, per pupil, $128, $130, because it was a non-recurring referendum, but it happens every year. So it goes on the tax base every year. So as you can see here in 15-16, the referendum that was passed 2 years ago, both of these numbers, have been added to the original number that I was talking about, the 11,500. So we're really at 11,900. If this continues and the referendum would pass, there would be another $400 added on to that. And
When you talk about the 11,000
Yep.
number, does that include the parking that the students pay for parking at school, the fees for athletics and everything else, or is that above and beyond?
no, that's above and beyond. Yep, it's another fund. The next slide, and I think this will just give you an idea. And this shows, proves the point, the $211 million that I said we added. This is what was added per pupil over the last several fiscal years. And this is just additional statewide funding besides the, I don't know if it's about $8 billion, I think, that we spend on K-12. This is additional revenue per pupil. There are categorical aids, and I could put all of you asleep very quickly if I started talking about the school aid formula, because I think that there are accountants in the city that don't even understand the school aid formula. It's really a complicated issue, and it's just the formulation between what the school district can levy and what the state aid is, and it has a wide variety of things in there. Whether you're a property-rich area, whether you're in declining enrollment, all of those are factors. But I just wanted to prove the point that we are funding schools. So don't believe the rhetoric that we're not. Last session increased 4.7%. This session, we fought for 5% increase. And that's the additional $250 per student that we put in, came out to $211 million extra that we put in to education.
Something else I'll let you know too, because I'm Senate District 18, so I cover a larger area than Oshkosh. I got Fond du Lac, I got North Fond du Lac, Rosendale, Amro, Lamont. None of those school districts have gone to referendum in recent past, except Oshkosh. But they're under the same mechanism that we have down at the state legislature for the city or for the school district of Oshkosh. So they're making things work. I don't know, it depends where you steer the boat, how you want to steer the boat to get things to stay straight. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well, that we've got two major referendums here coming to Oshkosh, and we haven't seen, I think, hopefully I might have tried one last year, I believe, but I think it came right in pass. But that's a small district, a very small district, considering one of the big districts. But yeah, nobody else has gone to referendum, we haven't needed to go to referendum.
I know that, I may be redundant in saying this, but I want to reiterate, we are not anti-teacher. We want great teachers in the schools. I think all of you want great teachers in the schools. And we've, since Act 10, we've installed merit pay to pay the better teachers more money. I think that's important because in any industry, you're going to have employees that you're going to have 10% of the employees that just don't do a good job. And I don't care what industry it's in, whether it's a teacher, police, fireman, in industrial, manufacturing, that's just going to happen. And we gave the schools the tools with Act 10 to take a look at their budgets and, to trim, some of the fatter areas of their budget. Now, I'm not sure if all of you really are aware that salaries make up about 53% of the total budget of the Oshkosh Area School District. And then if you include employee benefits, it comes out to about 26%. So it's right around 80% of their budget is spent on salary and wages. Purchase services is about 14%. Capital objects is about 3%, non-capital objects 3%, and then others is about 1%. When you have a budget like that, as in any industry, you have to look at the different areas. I know in my business, I run a small business, and if I see that my sales are declining, I've got to take a look at my expenses and try to cut in some areas. The Oshkosh School District does not use a zero-based budgeting formula, which I wish they would, but they automatically increase, and that puts them behind, right from the beginning. If they used a zero-based budgeting formula, I think they'd have a lot less, problems in dealing with their budget issues. One of the things that frustrates me is the ability to go on, and I'm a numbers guy. I used to be a stockbroker, so I love looking at income statements and balance sheets. I'd fall asleep at night with, a company's income statement. And I know it sounds weird, but that's probably why I put on joint finance, because I like digging into the numbers. I've told Stan that I think it's very difficult to get on the website. And as a matter of fact, I had one of my staff try to get on and bring their budget up. It took her 45 minutes. She's a very smart individual. It took her 45 minutes to get in and finally get to the area, and I just think it could be better accessible for all of you. And some, a lot of you aren't even going to care to go and look at it, but some of us are nerds and we like looking at the numbers, and it's difficult to get at that. I'm just going to point out a couple things that I picked out of the budget. And for the 14-15 budget, teacher salaries were $30.8 million. In 13-14, The proposed budget for 14-15, teacher salaries went to $32.2 million. It was a 4.5% increase. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a lot of correctional officers in my district. I don't believe that they've received a pay increase, to that extent. And many of you probably have not gotten a pay increase, that even kept up with inflation. That was a pretty glaring number to me. And I'm kind of randomly going through here, but on page 24 on one of them, and maybe, like I said, maybe Mr. Matt can explain a couple of these things. In the 13-14 budget, they had $161,000 budgeted for equipment and vehicles greater than $5,000. And in the 14-15 budget, that went up to $792,000. It was a 287% increase. I don't know, maybe they needed to replace, a vital vehicle, and hopefully he's got an explanation for that. But, I mean, time and time again, I'm going through, and, you can see where I've outlined stuff. The teacher's salary for special education went from $8.3 million to $9.9 million. That was a 20% increase. Health insurance for 13-14 to the 14-15 budget went up 25%, went from $2.9 million to $3.6. And this is where I'll kind of get on my high horse. This is after Act 10. So we gave the school districts the tools to be able to, adjust and make changes and help their budgets. And one of the things in the CESA 6, I forget how many different school districts are involved, but I know there's probably at least 30 administrators that show up every Friday, once a month. And Rick and I consistently, go to those meetings. And one of the superintendents there, Ted Knightsky, who is now becoming the CESA 6 administrator for the area, which is a good thing. Ted Knightsky ran the West Bend School District. And as soon as he actually probably even did this before Act 10 was finalized, he self-insured the West Bend School District. And yeah, it cost a little bit of upfront money, but since Act 10, for the last 4 or 5 years, they've been saving millions and millions of dollars in healthcare costs. And West Bend is a smaller school district than Oshkosh. And, it's frustrating when I see that a 25% increase in premiums, and I did read a line item in there somewhere that there was an explanation that, they got a quote and it went up 25%, but I'm going to do some shopping around, or I'm going to really consider self-insuring. You can offer actually better insurance, and in West Bend, all the teachers love it. All the employees love it. They have a physician on site in their schools, and the people go for the minor stuff, the major stuff. They still reinsure for catastrophic health instances. But that school district is saving millions of dollars. Another line item that really bugs me, and I can't always get a straight answer. And I noticed this last session when I was a freshman, and I'm going through the line item of their budget, and it was $4.1 million for health insurance for retired teachers. So I don't put all the blame on the school district. This was something that was negotiated, with collective bargaining, and in my opinion, they probably need to honor what was negotiated in collective bargaining. But I have no idea if new employees are being offered that, that benefit. So when you were a teacher, when you retired, the school district continued to pay your health benefits for 10 years. And that cost the Oshkosh Area School District $4 million a year. It's just another line item that is very frustrating to see.
They also pay retired teachers, I believe, 80% of their full salary
I don't think they're doing that anymore. Yeah.
If I may interject, at our meeting, I'm Doug Hornberg, I'm with Jim. We sat down with Stan Mack and Sue and that last week, talking about that one line item. And the stats that they gave us, if you correct me if I'm wrong, it's 88% of retirees' benefit for medical and dental, correct, is paid by the district. And that amount came to about $3 million, just over $3 million in the last budget. And so there is a big chunk that is going toward the retirees, but a lot of it is contractual from before that they retired, they were under contract and all that stuff. However, they are still continuing doing that with current employees to a certain point, offering that, because their philosophy was, we have someone, for example, that retires at $70,000, we hire someone new at $30,000, let's say. Well, the extra money, instead of saving that, we're going to apply that toward the retirees' benefits until they reach 65, and then it supposedly equals out. So when teachers retire, you think, oh, the district's going to save some money. No, they want to keep that money. So that was the current number, was just over $3 million given to retirees. So
retirees will be added on to that, so the number will continue going up.
Right.
But we also pointed out to you that we've already changed that benefit for administrators. Administrators don't get that same benefit anymore.
But
And
other
then this
employees
year,
still do.
we are going to look at trying to change that for all of the other employee groups. Because you're right, it's not affordable anymore. It was incorporated at a time when health insurance cost a lot less. But districts that have just totally wiped it out have also been sued because they gave that benefit under before Act 10.
Private sector that does this?
No, I realize you're absolutely right. That a lot of private
So
sector
then
do.
why are you doing it?
because they're used to doing that.
So I'm going to open it up for question and answers in just a couple minutes. I just have a couple more, and then we'll let all hell break loose here. I'm just kidding. One thing in kind of digging into the numbers and digging into how everything works in the Oshkosh Area School District, I found out, in manufacturing you want productivity. And I look at what their contracted work week is. It's 35 hours a week is what their Oshkosh Area School District contracted work week is. The average in the out of the 424 school districts in the state of Wisconsin is 37 hours. Their work week is 37 hours. Now that might not seem like a big difference in numbers, but let me tell you that probably amounts to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars if you get a little bit more productivity. I mean, this is 180 day job for a lot of these people per year. And, they get a couple months off in the summer. A lot of them do come back and do summer school, and they prepare for their classes. But if that was changed, just that amount, could add, I did the rough figures, and, it's a significant amount of money. And, what's that?
Is there a state minimum?
I don't know. I don't think that there is.
It's built within the student day responsibilities. It's the number of hours required or days required for instruction. So teachers' time is not exclusively contact time. It is preparation and additional work to prepare for the teaching for the next day.
So are students receiving more than the minimum?
Yes.
Do you know how much more?
Yeah, how much?
Because you're asking us to pay more than the maximum on the taxes, but we pay more than the minimum.
I don't have those figures, but we exceed the number of days and we exceed the number of hours.
Numbers would be very helpful, please.
Is early release, is that considered a full day?
With the hours, but we take into consideration those hours. So when we count our hours, we don't count the hour. For an hour early release day, we only teach 4 hours, we only count 4 hours.
Is that why when the juniors have to test at the whole high school?
Yeah.
They off, they went for
Okay, I'm losing control. Class? Sean? Anybody get that? All right. I think what we're going to do is open it up for question and answers now.
I just want to make one more comment. You know, a lot of times and in the press, Republican legislators, including myself, get a bad rap because we're not supposed to, or we don't come across as supporting public schools. And I just wanted to share this one thing with you. You know, I do support public schools. I do support the teachers and the effort they make to teach the kids. Nowadays, even in the time when parents become disconnected from the kids and expect the teachers to pick up the slack, which is unfortunate. But I do want to tell you, and Mr. Mack would know this because we're at the CISA 6 meeting. Governor Walker had just dropped his budget on us on February 5th, I believe it was. And the first thing we noticed is that there was a huge cut to the budget for public school education. Now, I mean, I could have said yay, you know, but the first thing I said was, you're getting crazy. You know, schools have gone through a lot, we get that. We understand that there are costs associated with teaching our kids and getting them to school and, you know, getting them back home every day. So there were three of us. It was myself, on the Senate side, it was myself, Luther Olson, and Rob Coles. All three of us banded together to make sure that, number one, we're going to put the money back that the governor took out of the budget. And the second thing we wanted to do is we wanted to increase the funding for public schools in a small way, $200 million. We wanted to give some money back to the public schools because I really don't think, if there's a problem, that it resides in the teachers and their effort to teach the kids. In my view, it's more of the administration and how the district is managed. That's just my opinion. So I don't want to take it away from the kids. So we want to make sure that our kids are going to be there to fill the jobs. When I leave and retire someday, when Mike leaves and retires someday, Joe, we're all going to hit retirement. We want kids to backfill those. So I did want to tell you that there were three of us, and that was enough to start a good conversation, because anytime in the Senate you get three Republicans that are against something, you just lost your vote. So you need to start talking and conversing. And as we started talking and conversing with our other colleagues on the Republican side, they began to realize that, yeah, this really isn't the right thing to do because it really isn't the kids' fault. We need to make sure that we're getting the kids educated. We want the kids to come out of high school. We want them to go to tech school, go to college, get some kind of a job so they can contribute to society. And we can't do that by not funding. So we didn't want to give the farm away, but we wanted to give something that would keep the schools going until more schools were able to figure out ways to cut costs and hold back and find savings just like they do in the private sector every day. So I did want to throw that in. I am one of the senators who believes that we needed to do something for the kids this time. So we did that. And I'm proud of that. I don't think it was money thrown away at that time. I think that it was money well spent. I do think that there's a lot of work to do in a lot of different districts. Ones I'm familiar with. There's opportunity there. You just have to be willing to take the opportunity and do sometimes what's conceived to be uncomfortable. But I just want to let you know that I was one of them. I can attest to that because I live in CISA when Luther and I and Rob banded together, so we're not going to stand for this. We have to do something. At a minimum, we want to fill the hole. Right? We want to get them back to zero at a minimum. If there was something else we could do during the budget process, we wanted to do a little bit more to keep things moving in the right direction. In the hopes that someday people will be able to find those savings and get those savings back to the taxpayers through different management techniques in the school districts.
So I just want to talk about one other thing that I'm going to open it up, and I'd like everybody to use the mic because I know there's some people that can't hear what's being said on the other side of the aisle. I authored a bill, I called it the referendum bill, and my bill, I actually started working on it last session, and beginning of this session, we dealt with the budget for the first 6 months, and as soon as the budget was over, I started working on this bill. In April, there are going to be close to 100 referendums. Out of the 424 school districts, there's close to 100 school districts that are going to referendum for more money. It was given to schools as a tool. The referendum, to exceed the levy limit was given to schools. And what I think has happened is that a lot of school districts, and unfortunately, some of them haven't played by the rules, in my opinion, and it's ruined it for all the other school districts. Because there are rural school districts that probably they shouldn't be operating because they have to go to referendum for operating revenues. And the people in those smaller communities in the rural areas, they decide if they want to let their taxes go up, and they pass referendums. My frustration was always when there'd be a special election for a referendum. In the middle of the night, I would call it, when people really weren't paying attention. So what my bill basically did, the language said that if a school district is going to go to referendum to exceed the levy limit, that you would have to go in the regularly scheduled general elections. And in a 2-year period, that's 3 times that they would have been able to go to referendum. It would have been this spring general, the November general of the even year, and then in the spring of the odd year, there's a general election. There is no general election in the fall of the odd year. So it would allow school districts 3 opportunities. I had worked and whipped votes really hard. I had 53 votes at one time. It dropped to 51 votes. And a lot of the school administrators made phone calls to the different legislators. We have a lot of legislators that are in 50-50 districts, and this is an election year, presidential election year, and I think they feared, for their jobs of not coming back, unfortunately. And my bill was killed. Even the last day of caucus, I tried to get something passed to eliminate the special elections. I even changed it, and I was going to allow referendums to be held also in the primary. So it would give 6 opportunities every 2 years. And there just wasn't the appetite. If you guys are as frustrated as I am, now I put this out, I think we sent out 22 or 23,000 spring surveys. And I put this question in my survey. Do you support having school referendum on regularly scheduled general elections so that the majority of taxpayers can be involved in the process? And my district, the 53rd district, is about 60% Republican. That question came back 89% positive. So that told me that people are tired of the special elections. There was a special election 2 days after Christmas where they passed a multi-million-dollar referendum because people, all of you work hard, and not everybody's going to the polling, and I know a lot of school administrators said, well, that's the responsibility of the taxpayers to go and vote. Well, a lot of people just aren't connected as you and I are, and they go to elections, in the general elections when they know that there's going to be people on the ballot. They don't know to go in early February or June or July or August. So I'll be bringing that bill up again. It did fail. It did not have enough votes, and I'll be bringing that up if I get reelected. I'll be bringing that up next session. So what we're going to do is, and let's, I want to give everybody an opportunity. And what time do we got here? 6:45, so 45 minutes we've been going. We'll just go around and I'll try to answer as many questions as I can.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to really ask a question. I'm going to make a couple observations. I'm Ken Olson. I'm a Winnebago County Supervisor, District 15. I am and my district includes Robbins. But hearing some of the things I've heard tonight, I have to comment on something. One is, and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think last year we had a consortium, the county, the city, and the school district formed that clinic. There was a clinic formed for very favorable, if any, rates for walk-in care. Okay? Now, I assume that the majority of your employees are taking advantage of that. So then why is your cost going up 25%?
Well, I think you picked one line item, you picked one line item out of our budget. Our health insurance went up by 0 this last year.
Okay.
Now, because you pulled one line item out of Fund 27, which is special education, and special education is all federal mandated programs for children with disabilities, you pulled one line item out of there. Our health insurance actually went up 0 on January.
Okay. Second is, I'm new to Social Security, but I think a lot of you are currently on Social Security. Now help me with the numbers here. For this past year, I got a message that said my benefits will not go up because it doesn't meet the cost of living. We haven't had a raise in how many years?
There's no raise this year for any people on Social Security. Now, let's put it down where people can understand something. If you have a home that's valued, let's say, $200,000, that's not the castle at the top of the hill. That's an average home. That's $200 increase, or thereabouts, a little over. But that's a $200 a month or a year increase. Now, I don't get a raise. I'm on Social Security. My wife is on Social Security. Okay? Where does this come from? I don't understand. Has anybody ever sat down and figured out, hey, we live on a budget. Here's how much money I have coming in. I've got heating, electricity, so and so. Somebody's got to sit down in government and figure out, hey, this is what I can afford and this is what I can't afford.
That's a good point with regards to Social Security. Our county board has a website. It's very transparent. Anybody wants to know what our budget is, any form of county government, it's available and it's very easy to access, which frustrates me that when you go on the school board, you can't find the budget. You know, it should be just as transparent as our county budget is. And the last thing I'm going to say, and I'll pass the mic, is I asked Mr. Mack, I asked Dr. Jones, he gave it to you today, I asked him for a detailed line item under the open records law of their budget, what they spent, what their budget is, line by line, including benefits. And I would expect that Mr. Mack will comply with that in a reasonable amount of time. Thank you.
No, just, and I was going to bring this up, but, Michael hit on it in a couple things as far as, since the high point, I mean, we're talking the last decade, we've got a population decrease of around, I think it was like 500 and some students, or calculations I had were 459 from the high point over the last decade. And this was from, you had 49% from an article in the Northwestern in 2014 that the Oshkosh Area School District has raised taxes 36.8% over the last decade. In that same time frame over the last decade, the historical inflation-adjusted median household income for Oshkosh has gone from a high of $58,451 down to currently $52,387. So the average median income in the Oshkosh area has gone down over $6,000. And the school district is coming back to those tax-paying citizens for additional money when they do not have it. The average household has lost $6,000 in income, and you're coming to the average citizen for more money because you can't control your budget.
Thank you. And actually, I would like to add on to a point that you said. I budget my household so I can pay my bills. I can't indiscriminately go out and just say, okay, I need some more money. I went on vacation, but now I can't pay my mortgage and my gas and my groceries, so please give me some more money. So I would really appreciate if we would take a real close look, and I'm a numbers person myself, I have been an account manager, if the school district would really look at the budget like you were looking at your own home. I think it would be budgeted differently, so that's one point. The second point I'd like to make is, I have a question actually first, is when is the contract out for the school teachers for the insurance, health insurance? When does their current contract end?
Technically, each contract is June 30th, but I think there's some obligation, and we are looking at that post-employment benefit for teachers. There's
No. You're not sure where my question is going. So when is the current contract that you put? So let me rephrase my question. When can you reopen up negotiations for other insurances besides WEOP?
Oh, we don't have
You have gone out and you have looked for other insurances.
Correct.
You have. So how much have you saved per year on that?
Well, I don't have that information, but
You don't have.
right after Act, I can get it for you, but right
That
after
would be
Act
great.
10, we did bid it out, and we have been with group health trust ever since the
You
Act
have.
10 happened.
Wonderful.
And every 2 years, we bid it out.
Okay.
And we reduce benefits, increase deductibles, but I don't have the number
You are correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that was through that process. By continuing to refine the benefits and alter the benefits, and because we initiated with our previous, with the carrier, our love to get the seed money to really start the meetings and turn to the county and the city and ask them if they would like to join us, because we were going to do it on our own, no matter what. And they thought it was a wise idea as well, so joined us in the clinic. That has led to really that first experience that no one could remember in history, whereas January 1st, our increase was 0.
And actually, that's a good, because I'm quite aware, I've done insurance billing, and we is very costly. So thank you.
I was just going to ask real quick, and everybody knows, I represent this district, so I represent everybody in this room. And I'm from Fond du Lac, but I don't know, where's the money going? If this referendum passes, where's the money going?
They can't tell us.
So if you continue to do referendums to pay teacher salaries, how do you get out of a referendum cycle? I mean, how do you get to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining? Yeah, absolutely.
You said you've given us more state aid, which you have, but we're also capped by what's called the revenue limit formula. You haven't talked at all about the fact that we're capped by the revenue limit formula. And the revenue limit formula gave us a 0 increase in 15. Oh, sorry, thank you. It gave us a 0 increase in 15-16. So even though you gave us an increase in state aid, that's why our property taxes went down, is because any increase in state aid has to be property tax relief because we're capped by the revenue limit formula.
So why don't you budget accordingly to being capped?
The district has cut over $17 million in the last 8 years, so we have been cutting as well.
You keep coming back and asking for more money via a referendum, so you're really not cutting.
But we have in the past. We've cut over $17 million over the years.
The plan that's in place is to do the cuts. If we're supposed to live within our means, the consequences will be those cuts.
And just a question, will the administrators feel any of that?
Yes, the plan has.
One administrative position.
I believe 2 administrators over the.
92.7 teachers and staff.
The first year has 1 administrator, and over the course of the next 2 years, there's 2 administrators.
Oh.
If it's fiscally responsible to close a middle school if the referendum doesn't pass, would it be also fiscally responsible to close a middle school if it does pass?
Yes, that's one of the things I've been advocating.
That's not what's stated by the school board. It will close if it doesn't pass.
Yeah, but we have continually worked on the issue. I came to the district wondering why we had so many elementary schools, plus 5, because I had a district of 2,000-3,000 more students, and I had 3 middle schools and not 5, and I had 10 elementary schools and not 14. And but the message that I heard loud and clear was, we like our neighborhood schools, we want to keep them. This becomes a means of really, I concur. If we can shrink to the number of administrative structures that are there and make it work, I don't think it's a bad idea. And that could be done even with a past referendum, because what that would do is save money in the future. No disagreement on that.
No.
The school corporation does.
So, but yeah, if I've asked the question repeatedly, and I totally support shrinking, but the issue has been, we, in the message we heard in the community, we like our neighborhood schools. Maybe we no longer can afford our neighborhood schools, and that may very well be. But that, it is certainly possible, and it could be done.
One of the things, and I don't think Mr. Mack answered answered Rick's question. You probably noticed in the paper one of the line items that what the $4 million is going to be used for. About $600,000 of that is going to be used for new cameras, security cameras for the schools. And we basically have 21 schools. Oak Lawn has cameras because it was just built a couple years ago. So there's 20 schools that need cameras. Now, I am having cameras installed, 8 cameras in my business. It was $2,800. If you take the 20 times $30,000 per school, I don't know how many cameras you're going to be putting into the schools. But to me, $30,000 per school seems like an awful lot of money. There is still the issue of the Riff Road property. And so I don't know if you can just talk a little bit about what some of the other money is planned to be used for. Will there be teacher raises given in that? Because the last referendum that was passed, a couple months after it was passed, it was in the Northwestern, and all of a sudden there was a $900,000 raise, for teachers, which I'm not opposed to, but it would have been nice to know that beforehand, because as a taxpayer, I didn't know that that's where my money was going to be going.
Well, the 900,000 was finally after 3 years without any increases whatsoever, and because from 2000 Act 10 on, and that year before Act 10 actually passed, there were no increases in adjustment. Teachers have had an average increase over the last 5 years of 1.04%.
You know how many people in the private sector go without any?
I went 7 years.
Yeah,
Is that base pay or is that salary and incentives? That we don't have increase?
1.44% isn't that much.
Right. Now,
Is that base or is that salary and incentives?
that it would be salary and incentives, yeah.
Now, at the
or that's the base, the 1.04, and then there's small
incentives
base.
and coaching and other stuff.
Oh, well, coaching is a separate job.
And then they can always do overtime and other stuff, right?
Well, they're salaried, they're not really overtime. They're salaried employees, so they're not into overtime. If they take additional assignments, coaching, advisorships, those kind of things, summer school, those are separate appointments there. I would like to say, although Representative didn't say that, I did testify on behalf of that bill controlling the to 3 elections per every 2 years.
You testified not in favor of it.
No, I testified in favor of it.
Well,
Yes, I
you
did.
testified in favor of having it be on a regular election day. You were against
You
having
wanted primaries
to
also.
No, I didn't. I didn't expect primaries. I only testified on the 3 general election days that were there. I think primaries with low voter turnout. I have never been a party to ever using anything other than general election days. And if you review my testimony, I testified only on behalf of having the 3 general election days.
And you said you were in favor of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Going back to the employees'
Just real quick,
salaries.
Can I interject real quick?
Okay.
I gotta leave. I wanted to thank you all for being here tonight. More importantly, and I do want to give Stan and Sue a lot of credit for being here. So
Yes.
thank you both for being here.
I also want to affirm that appreciation of changing the bill on the governor's position initially. That did put us in a better position. It actually, even though our levy cap didn't give us any more money, it gave us dollars to deal with property tax relief. That's really what happened.
Going back to the employees' salaries, during the meeting last week, I addressed that question because in the 2014 referendum and this referendum, your presentation weighs heavily on showing how much the teacher's average pay is so less compared to all the other districts. And so the question that we received through the Facebook page was how much of this money is going to go toward the referendums and how much did it? And you told us that during the meeting that you are limited to the state requirement of the cost of living thing. So you're saying none of the money of the referendum goes toward the teachers' benefits and pays to increase it, as you guys are kind of pushing on your presentation. So it kind of misleads the voters that are like, well, yeah, our teachers are being paid less, so let's pass this referendum to help them out. But in reality, a lot of that money, if at all, are going toward the benefits and stuff. The only thing that the referendums are doing are protecting some of the positions that may be eliminated.
100% salary is for those who remain employed. That remains the dollars there. We know that the CPI index from the state, effective July 1, which is not quite as bad as Social Security, but is 1,201% increase that we are permitted to adjust compensation for the coming school year.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everyone knew, though, that the referendum money is not going toward the benefits of teachers, as the presentation really shows that how low they are. And also, just real quick, you also, during the meeting, you said if state funding remains flat In 2 years, even if this referendum passes, you're gonna be asking for another 400 million a year. Or not, for 4 million a year. Yeah. But, so, we got the 2014 referendum, we're gonna have the 2016 referendum, and then in 2 years, if state funding remains flat, like you said, you're gonna be asking for another 4 million a year. So that's 3 referendums going at the same time for 4 million.
But if that's negative, if there's negative inflation or no inflation, we wouldn't have any justification for it. And the other piece that I do wish to comment on is one of the figures that Mike put up was it included a referendum that only ran for 5-6 years, and it was a maintenance one for beginning our repair and replacement boilers, and that expired 2 years ago. That's not any longer on books.
Well, you better let Fiscal Bureau know about that, because that information, I didn't come up with that, that was Fiscal Bureau. I do also want to just point out, you're talking about salary. The average salary in Oshkosh Area School District, average, is $65,000, salary and benefits. Right.
And is that adjusted for part-time teachers? Non-full-time teachers?
No, that would be pro rata based on how much time they actually work. Remember, that's an
So
average.
it's adjusted for
So there are people
non-part-time
below,
positions.
like beginning teachers, but there are teachers that make a lot more.
Now, new teachers coming into the district make 38,000, right, about? Okay. And it is my understanding also that when you do have an opening, you have literally 50 to 100 applications. It used to be a lot more.
Right. Well, at elementary, we have over 100 for applications for most of our specialty areas. Now, I'll tell you, in FIED and social studies, we probably have plenty of applicants. But even in English, it's getting less. But in all the hard sciences, in tech ed, and in the high sciences, physics, chemistry, advanced math, those are all very tight supply, especially in all the special ed is very tight supply. And the pool is extremely thin in each of those areas. I should make note of the fact that Representative Schraa indicated that comparison with West Penn District School District, they have done reforming, but they're paying people more. They're the fourth highest salary and benefits.
Well, they're able to pay more because they're saving so much in benefits.
Well, yeah, that's the trade-off, because we're paying on the other end, and they're fourth highest in benefits in the CISA 6 region. And for salary and benefits. Yeah.
Right, they're not going to referendum.
Exactly.
Nobody's talked about this, and I'll probably get booed out of the room, but I had a friend who was going to bid on South Park refurbishing of their swimming pool. And in the bid package, it was sent out to non-union and union. But if you're a non-union contractor, you have got to prove, you've got to up your cost per hour to the union wages, and then you've got to prove that your contractor or your employees are given the same benefit as a union. That is so wrong, and you could save so much money if you just bid it apples and apples. Forget unions. That's where you've gotten in trouble.
That's where they all wait. Actually, they take care of that.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then the other thing is that I wanted to say is, how many of your retired teachers are coming back and double dipping and teaching and still getting paid while they're getting their retirement pay?
Very few do, because of the caps that are on it, and we're terribly short. If anybody in this room wants to be a substitute teacher, we would love to have you, because we are so short on substitute teachers. It's incredible. Taking good experienced people and having them come back is a travesty. It's not an issue of double dipping. We beg for them to come back and do so to the limits that are allowed by law. But beyond that, there's no incentive for them, and we are terribly short of licensed and qualified substitute teachers.
If you would put the teachers that just came out of school at the top of the list instead of the teachers that are retired at the top of the list, maybe you get better numbers.
We don't have a list prioritized by ACP. If they answer the computer that calls them, it doesn't sort out between those who are retired or those who are
Just to hire a permanent pool. The last substitute teachers, 20 teachers to move around, just like you did with.
Okay, we got the microphone over here.
I just want to make a point, and that was you said that whether the referendum passes or not, you'd be closing a middle school. And I think it's a little dishonest to say if the referendum doesn't pass, then we have to close a middle school. If you're looking at closing it either way, then it's kind of a scare tactic.
Well, the issue there is that we've been asked that question. I've been asking the question. No action's been taken by the board to support that action yet. I don't know that whether they would support it or not. It would be our advice to look at what we can do to have less administrative heads around the district, less buildings.
And wouldn't it be fair to let the public know that when you're talking about this referendum? Because parents are saying, if I don't vote for this, the middle school's going to be closed. Well, guess what? If you do vote for it, the middle school could still be closed. I mean, it's just an honesty.
Okay, we'll take like 5 or 6. I'd like to wrap up by 7:30. I know everybody's got family lives and stuff, so try to keep your questions on the short end.
Hi, my name is Andy Turner. I'm district supervisor for District 25, which is all in Oshkosh School District. I think what a lot of people here are upset about is because the school district doesn't seem to want to be transparent with what they're doing. If we did that on the county board, I'd want them to fire me. Because, all right, so you say your salaries are low. What we did in the county, people know what their salaries are here. They know what the salaries for the same people that work up in Allegheny County does, and counties that are similar. So what we did is we had a job study or wage compensation study done. And we are going to start compensating our employees here because they are making less. So do that. Do a wage study. Tell the taxpayers up front. We've got 5th grade teachers here that are, or these teachers here that are, here for 5 years. They've been here 5 years, and they're making $2,000 less a year than the people in West Bend, the people in Allegheny County, or like school districts. And tell them up front. We want to pay these people the same that these other people are paying. And it's going to cost us $1.2 million. And ear tag $1.2 million. This malarkey that they've been doing 2 years ago, and now saying, okay, we just need this money, and we're not going to earmark it for anything, and it's like an open checkbook. And it tends to make a lot of people upset. And it's just not a good way to do things. You need to be more transparent.
Yeah, go ahead. We were totally transparent. We preserved the programs that we promised to preserve.
Well, how come we aren't earmarking the money for exact things? Just saying, no, we just need $4 million a year, and we're not going to tell you what we're going to spend it on. If I did that on the county board, I'd want people to fire me.
How come the integrators weren't part of the referendum for the technology, the integrators? In the frequently asked questions, you say you're going to cut the integrators. This doesn't pass. That wasn't part of the referendum before.
Because they were taken from the operational budget and the capital funds of core computers.
Shouldn't the referendum 2 years ago be paying for those? Why should those people be getting?
For the equipment.
And so you're just going to buy the equipment?
Still the money too. That's something to think about. We still have 5 years on that.
So you're just going to buy the equipment? Who cares if they know how to use it?
So that's why we have the integrator.
And that's why that should have been part of the previous referendum.
We had already done that in order to implement technology for teachers in the classroom.
Well, it sounds like a priority thing. If they're that important, you would keep them. Might have to buy a little less equipment then.
So we have.
I don't understand why you ask for the money for the technology, but then you don't plan for the money for the integrators to bring it into the classroom.
We planned for that ahead of time.
Then how come you have to cut the money now?
Because in the second year of this, effectively, there's not a way to do with it. That's in the second year of cuts, if necessary. Not in the first year.
As stated earlier by Senator Gudix, in the rest of the 18th Senate District, there's all these other districts that have not had to go to a referendum. What are those schools doing, or those districts doing, differently than what you are?
Yeah, they started off at a higher base. That levy cap that has not been really discussed. We started off at a lower in 1992
million. I mean, even the Representative said the board has levied to its cap the last 6 years, but from 2003 to 2009, it did not levy to the max. It under levied in those years by over $8 million. And you can never make that up.
So you met their payroll back then.
Well, no, what it did was it avoided dealing with what was desperately needed was the replacement for over 75-year average buildings of putting replacement boilers in and doing all the heating equipment that we've been doing the last 4 years. The last 4 years, we have undertaken this project and based on the need to replace 30, 40, 50-year-old boilers and some even older than that. And the last two, Roosevelt and North, will be done this summer. And
But those are covered by energy efficiency fund.
yeah, but that was all part of the levy that was outlined of the additional taxing that we have in place. Because that's the cumulative effect.
That was additional to your levy bills, correct? Because you did it one in 2012 and 2014
Yes.
for a total of $38 million that people don't know about.
That's
That
included
we
in all
are
the
paying.
yeah, but that's included in all the numbers that Representative Schraa had on the board. Because remember, those are not used for instruction; those are used for replacing boilers. Just in the last recent years now, because of those energy efficiency improvements, we've gone from in our 21 locations spending over $1 million for natural gas per year to under $500,000. Considerable savings over time, good investment, and taking care of our facilities.
Okay, Mr. Mack, I got a question for you. Right here. Yeah, I've sold insurance in my life over 15 plus years. And have you had anybody do a look at your census and do an audit of your census of the whole complete picture? And then do they offer, what do they offer? Is it a 250 deductible, 500, 1,000, 750? Do you know what the deductibles are? Do they offer just one, or do they offer a multitude of different deductibles to choose from?
There's really two major deductibles, single and family deductibles. We have an insurance consultant that guides us through that and actually have saved us all kinds of money.
Okay.
And we're continuing to work on, our goal for this coming year is seeing what do we have to do to effectively have another year with zero increases.
That's it's going to be hard because everybody's paying more for insurance. Right. I realize that even with Obamacare.
So what it means is, for all of us on the insurance plan, we'll have, for all of us in the insurance plan, it is effectively to, it will be probably higher deductible and the like.
Okay, because otherwise if you stay at one certain area and you keep going, we in the industry know it as, it turns into an insurance death spiral.
Right. Sure.
And then you're going to spiral out of control.
That's why we're working very hard to manage that issue. One of the things that I also strongly believe, and I had, and we're not quite at that stage, but I think we eventually, and it will not be probably popular, is forcing the issue to a single provider.
Okay.
I've advocated a single provider.
Or maybe get that guy West Bend a call and say, hey, let's see what you got, or have your insurance
broker.
broker.
We have a semi,
okay.
Single provider is not the insurance, it's who people can use for health insurance.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's a separate issue.
To answer that one about the deductible, that was one of the other questions asked at the meeting last week. How much would the district save if the deductibles were increased to $1,500/3,000? And the amount given was approximately just over $1 million savings to the district. But that would affect the competitiveness with the teachers going from one district to the other. That was their
When we're
counter.
already on the lowest in the compensation area, to make it less affordable to be here, that's not an easy thing.
Well, we have school nurses already in place. Why not hire physicians?
We don't have physicians, we have physicians assistants. And,
they're just as good, yeah.
And they're governing. The clinic does not have a doctor.
Okay.
We're operating on the basis, friends in the county is still here, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
They have a doctor who's the supervisor.
Right, there's a supervisor, but
Has to be.
the clinic is staffed by physicians assistants.
Right, and nurse practitioner.
Right, yeah, nurse practitioner.
And it's a great clinic, and people are saving a lot of money.
Here we are.
Yep.
Okay, my turn. Alright, so, I would assume that everybody in this room loves their children and wants them educated, and it's how we're gonna get to it. You want to, I want to, and in some of our cases, we've educated our children, we're working on our grandchildren. So here we are. So, what I heard for the first few minutes is how much money we're throwing to that education. Now, there's other ways to get a person educated other than throwing more and more money at it. You can get more clever. Point number one. Number two, taxpayers in Oshkosh, as this gentleman and other people have made really clear, have a finite piece of money. Money coming in is very finite without the raises that other people are getting. So a miserable $8 a month is over $100, and over, if you have a $200,000 house, it's over $200 in addition to the other money we're paying. And it's not that the taxpayers, that is the taxpayers that are people who are working, it's not that the taxpayers are niggly and they don't want to go into their purses and into their wallets, is that there's hardly anything left in those purses and wallets to give. And the other point I want to make is that one of the gentlemen that was in the newspaper quoting about today said that if we don't do this, we don't understand business principles. Well, I understand business principles enough to know that, you know, you could screw people over, and that's called business. But there's also something called ethical and moral responsibility of people to do the best they have with what they've got. Thank you very much.
All right, two more here.
Steve Landolt. I have been in financial services for as long as Mike has been alive, 54 years.
Hey.
And, I hear certain things. One of them is 10 years ago, people made $58,000 per family. Now it's down to $52,000. That's $6,000. That's 12%, roughly about 11% less. The district has raised their spending 40% in the last 10 years. There's 5% less students in the classrooms. Now, I too read financial reports, and I have seen an awful lot of companies that are against the wall. And you people are against the wall. I understand and I sympathize with you. But you are the executive, you are the chief executive officer of the school district. The school board is the board of directors. And the board of directors in many of these companies put it to the chief executive officer, and the chief executive officer makes cuts. And when you come to us time and time again, asking for more money from these people, and they've gotten 10, 11, 12% less money per family in that period of time, that is brutal. To come to the people is very demeaning. When you ask for more money from people that are getting less, you have got to tell I'm not going to tell you how to spend the money. That's up to you, Stan. That's up to the board of directors, the school board. And when they come along and they just spend more money and then shift the blame to somebody else, that is dastardly wrong. And Stan, it would be nice if you would come to the people.
Maybe different people on the school board.
That's a good idea.
Stan, whether we vote them out or vote them in makes no difference. That is being very, very demeaning to our population for what you people have done to the taxpayers of this community. Now, what else has to do with? In a long period of time, business looks at this area and says, oh, they get less students, and they're raising their taxes. And they don't pay $200 a year more. They pay hundreds of thousands more.
That was a good point. That point was brought up actually at the chamber meeting this morning, and I think the question was, there were 400 people that were surveyed for this referendum. I believe that's 401 people, you had said? 407 people were surveyed. But then the group that you put together to talk about the cuts, there were 30-some people in that group. There was not one business owner in that group. Now, businesses, whether you want to believe this or not, pay 25% of the taxes in the city of Oshkosh. You've got Oshkosh Truck, you've got Leon's Frozen Custard, which, those are after that. You have all these businesses, and you didn't have one business member, a part of that group that talked about the cuts, and I think that would have been appropriate considering that 25% of the taxes in Oshkosh are paid by businesses.
I believe most of us have tried to do short-range planning and long-range planning. And the point I would like to make is that with this declining enrollment and with the economy flat, what are we going to do in regard to the future? Now, we've heard how many schools, buildings there are, and it appears that we need to make some changes. So my question is, what are the school board going to do, and what are you as a CEO administrator going to do to get a discussion started, to get hearings held in the area, so that we talk about how we can close some of these schools and how we can get the students to the schools, maybe have to bus them or whatever we have to do. But to me, I just moved here the 8th of December. And I hear what's going on here, and it seems to me that we cannot kick the can down the road. Governor Walker said a lot about that years ago. Kicking the can down the road. This is urgent. It's immediate. Before this school year is over, I would ask the school board and you as CEO to set up a plan to start talking to the people about what the people can do in order to take care of this declining enrollment and to close some schools in order that we can get some fiscal responsibility. This is irresponsible. You are stealing from us. You are plundering us. You are going way overboard against what we can do.
Okay.
School board meeting's the 23rd. He gets paid $170,000. You know, speak to the school board meeting on the 23rd, next Wednesday.
Couple more questions and then
At the administrative building at Eagle.
I really don't have a question. I just wanted to address something you said about the Oshkosh School District catching up to the other school districts. Before Act 10 could be signed into law, Oshkosh signed a contract with their employees. The other districts did not. They started using the tools from Act 10 to immediately start saving money.
Exactly.
I'm not going to yell at them. I would give my appreciation for the school district officials for coming out tonight. It's tough for them. I have two children. I have a 3.5-year-old. I have a 10-month-old. I have a vested interest in making sure my children get the best education. I believe any child, regardless of whether they're dirt poor or filthy rich, they should be entitled to the best education possible. I guess, one of the things the school district needs to do is they do need to consolidate. I think the superintendent agrees with us on that, but there are a lot of people that want these neighborhood schools. I grew up down south, and I got bused all the way across town to school. I don't think we should do that either, but one of the things I support too, and I would even support a referendum for it, is what he said. He said, save $500,000 on just, switching out boilers. If the school district wants to come and say, okay, get some people in there to say we can go, say, to LED lighting, we can go to more efficiency, that's real money, $500,000 a year. I support that, but what I don't support, what a lot of people don't support in here is when you keep having to go to referendum, it will get to a point where businesses are going to leave. People are going to start selling their homes. There needs to be a better long-term solution here. We have our legislators here. If the school district is getting that much less money from the state, then we need to go to our legislators and say, hey, the state needs to give this district more money. They can't keep just coming to the taxpayers of this district to say, hey, more money, more money. The state, obviously, if they're
I guess what I'm trying to say is that if they're getting so much less money from the government, then we need to.
It's our money.
It's our money too.
I understand that, but it should be spread out among the state. I mean, if other districts are getting more money, then why is our district getting so much less money? That needs to be addressed.
Let me add, I've gone through 8 questions now without having a chance for response. So, bottom line is, we have been changing the course. In fact, we're up about 18 to 20 students over what we expect over last year, and we were projecting a decline of 99 students. We built into and shrunk accordingly, and we're actually growing. I wouldn't claim a growth school district yet. We're stable. When you start leveling out at that level, and we fully expected that we'd be down 100 students this year. Instead, we're up to 20 beyond what was last year. The numbers are there. I will be cautious as we approach the issue of how do we become less efficient. The ideal world, and you never want to hear that, is to create 3 or 4 additions to elementary schools and close 8 of them. You could do that. People are not going to be ready for that. But each of those schools, we're trying to build the schools closest to the neighborhood. We gained back, we dropped 30 open students out of being open enrolled to other districts by simply stabilizing the south side of the district without going to the voters because we used TIF money to fix a school that couldn't house 2 sections of kindergarten through 5th grade. Well, we turned around that enrollment in that area. So there are a number of issues that can be explored. The bottom line issue that I'm concerned about, and I'm very empathetic and sympathetic to the issues, and nobody wears ethics, and I operate my life at the highest ethical behavior, is the fact that we do not want to create for children of Oshkosh leaving our schools less than the same opportunities as they go out into the world, be it to work for a technical college, for 4-year college, if we don't have the offerings that they need to succeed in getting into the best of colleges. Right now, we have an outstanding program protecting instructional programs, and that's where I do strongly believe that buildings don't educate people, teachers educate students. Teachers are our best investment. Preserving as many teachers and classes as opposed to buildings is far more important. And that's really an issue at hand. I can tell you that the efforts to plan to shrink and to adjust our budget, that's why there's a budget reduction plan. It isn't that we don't plan, we plan the impact of having the revenue or not having the revenue. And that's what the community will decide. And that's not because we don't plan, but we have to plan for whichever outcome. Remember that the expectations are that every child who leaves our stage next June for graduation, and the following year and the year after that, will have the same opportunities as their peers in our neighboring districts all across Wisconsin and across the country. And if we don't do that, then we've really betrayed our students.
Stan, do you teach phonics? Do you teach phonics in this school district?
Yes.
Across all the grade schools?
Yeah, there's a part of phonics you cannot. In fact, I can teach phonics myself backwards and forwards. But the issue is that for some students it works, and for the majority you cannot sound out words without. But it's not the cure-all for everything.
My kids went to Green Middle School, and when they went to South Park in sixth grade, every one of those kids, not just mine, but every kid across Green Middle School was in the top 10% at South Park. And they had to teach it. They're all out of teaching now, so I can say this. They were all under the table teaching it. And when they sent back the supervisors, the school secretary would say, run up and down the hall, say, here comes the supervisor. So then they go back to the old way of teaching English.
Okay, you had your turn.
Okay, this really isn't a question, it's just a statement. My mother-in-law, when I married my husband, gave me this little piece of advice, and I'm passing it on to you. Never, ever deliver ultimatums, because you may not like what happens. And that's what you're doing to the citizens of Oshkosh.
There was question, I don't know if you guys can answer that. Do you know what the average student, what the average student class size is for?
Primary, it's 23, 24. At from about fifth grade on, it's 27.
27.
Right. The reality is that most of our classrooms wouldn't fit that number any longer. That's part of the issue. Our classrooms are small, but the other issue is that the population that was being educated and the needs of children today are considerably different than they were. I never had less than 34 or 35 in my class all the way from grade school through high school. But that's not what the population is today, and that's true in most every district. Most of the districts, especially those that are smaller than we, have actually better class sizes because they might have only 44 children at an age level, and they have two classes of 22 or whatever the number. But to think about the ability to manage classrooms and today's needs that children come to school with, having larger class sizes is a most difficult one for the best of teachers.
We'll start to wrap this up. All of you probably received this in the mail today. Is this something that you did in the first referendum, that you sent a mailer like this out? Okay. Yeah, do you know what that cost? Is that the $58,000 that was set aside for?
Oh, it's part of that total.
That mailing was $8,500. They told us last week.
That went out today?
For that mailing, we paid $8,500.
And it went out to the whole city?
It's staggered. You get it on different days.
But it actually, unless you got an up-to-date figure, it actually was a new.
Okay.
Yep. She's got a certain fancy in her room teaching. Is that common now? Or no?
Also get that 58,000.
So she's not as pregnant.
Our side of the issue to the general public.
She doesn't know because that's
Where do I get that money? You're taking my tax dollars, taking more tax dollars for me. Where do I get the money to present my side to the citizens?
It is not any but that's our obligation.
Okay.
Where do I get my website to take that same $1,500 to dispute what you say are the facts? Where do I, as an individual citizen, where am I allowed to do that? Where do I get that money? I can't get the money from the taxpayer. I can't do that.
I do wish you could be a teacher.
Try to make this one relatively brief, and I understand that it's a little bit of apples and oranges, but the city of Oshkosh takes care of approximately 60,000 people. That's everything from police, fire, streets, sewers, everything in the entire city.
I don't like the job.
Their budget isn't even approaching $90 million. And according to this sheet that's handed out up front, and I'm going to go with an average on that, they're claiming $134.6 million. It says $107 million for the school budget for 10,000 students. How do we have that discrepancy as far as?
If I want to go maybe more something, right?
Ratio of police or other officials that work are not at 26:1. If we did, you'd have a similar rate, or 27:1 for city employees. Education is a business that we end up.
You said it's a business, we run it like one.
We are. Okay. It is a business that's run with that kind of ratio, and you can go to any city and you compare. And our city runs very efficiently.
She is making, I had her with, she's making $62,000 a year. Plus benefits with $250 deductible for insurance. So that's okay for insurance.
The secretary $62,000.
And she did everything I asked her to, and that's why I was #1 sales guy for AAA for the last 7 years I was there. So,
$107 million.